Good morning. Every day we wake up with a choice. Choice to move forward or stand still, to grow or to decay. The truth is there is no neutral ground. Time doesn't wait. Life doesn't pause. The people we admire most, those we call high achievers, great leaders, fulfilled human beings, they don't have more time than us. They've simply made better decisions about what to work on every single day. If you want to lead a meaningful life, not just a successful one, there are 5 things you must commit to working on daily, not once a month, not when it's convenient, every day. These are the pillars that build character, resilience, connection, and impact. Let's walk through each one together. Your mindset is the starting point of everything. It shapes how you interpret the world around you, how you respond to challenges, how you see others, and most importantly, how you see yourself. It is the silent architect of your destiny. You can have talent, resources, and even opportunity, but if your mind tells you you're not enough, you'll sabotage every step forward. You'll see possibilities and call them problems. You'll meet mentors and call them critics. You'll face growth and label it failure. Your mind is the lens. But here's the thing, most of us don't realize that lens can get dirty, fogged by fear, cracked by criticism, distorted by comparison. And when that happens, you can't see clearly. You stop taking risks. You play small. You start shrinking to fit into other people's boxes, into expectations that never felt right. The worst part? You don't even realize it's happening. It just feels like life is hard, or that you're unlucky, or that you're not made for more. But it's not life. It's the lens. And that lens is not permanent. That's the power of mindset. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build day by day, intentionally, with effort. That's what people miss. They wait for confidence to arrive, for belief to appear. But mindset isn't something you wait for, it's something you work on. There's a well-known psychologist who introduced a concept called the growth mindset. It's the belief that your abilities are not fixed, that you're not born good at math or bad at leadership, that with effort, time, feedback, and learning, you can improve, that failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of it. And when you believe that, everything changes. Obstacles become teachers, criticism becomes information, challenges become invitations to level up. Let me tell you about someone who lived this. Her name is Sarah. She grew up in a small town, in a home where no one had gone to college. She was told to aim for safe jobs, keep her head down, and not ask for too much. But she had a dream. She wanted to become a doctor. She scraped together enough to go to a local college, and she failed her first exam. Now, most people would have quit, packed up, told themselves, see, I'm not cut out for this. But Sarah said something different. She told herself, I can learn how to learn. She didn't see failure as a wall. She saw it as a mirror, showing her where she needed to grow. She spent the next 5 years learning how to learn. She built systems for note-taking. She asked questions when it was uncomfortable. She studied while others partied. She doubted herself many times. But she didn't stop. She didn't have the highest IQ, the best tutors, or perfect conditions, but she had the mindset that said, I'm not there yet. 5 years later, she graduated, she became a doctor, not because she was born brilliant, but because she built her belief brick by brick. And that's the point. You don't need to be born into greatness. You need to believe that you can grow into it. And belief isn't wishful thinking, it's practiced thinking. It's a choice you make every day. So how do you actually do that? How do you work on your mindset when the world is screaming at you to doubt yourself? Start with what you feed it. Every morning, before the emails, before the noise, before the world tells you who you're supposed to be, give your mind something good. Read something that inspires you. Journal what you're grateful for. Reflect on a win, no matter how small. Meditate even for a few minutes to hear your own voice again. And most importantly, question your thoughts. Every time you hear that inner critic, the one that says you're not smart enough, experienced enough, young enough, old enough, pause. Ask yourself, is this thought serving me or stopping me? Because your brain isn't your enemy, but it is a survival machine. And sometimes in trying to keep you safe, it keeps you small. You have to train it to see possibilities instead of problems. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens by intention. Let me give you an example. There's a study that showed how people who reframe anxiety as excitement perform better. Just by telling themselves, I'm excited, instead of I'm nervous, their heart rate improved, their confidence increased, and they actually did better. Same emotion, different mindset. The difference isn't in your circumstances, it's in how you interpret them. And interpretation is a habit. We spend hours at the gym trying to build physical strength, but we spend almost no time building mental resilience. Why? Because it's invisible, because it doesn't show up on Instagram. But mindset is the foundation that supports everything else. You can have strategy, skills, and support, but if your mind is whispering, you don't belong here, you'll sabotage yourself every time. You'll shrink in meetings, you'll procrastinate on applying, you'll ghost the opportunity, not because you can't, but because you don't believe you can. Think of your mindset like a garden. If you don't plant something good, weeds will grow by default. Self-doubt, fear, comparison, they're the weeds. You don't need to water them, they grow on their own. But to grow confidence, optimism, grit, that takes daily care. It's not glamorous. Some days you'll feel like it's working, some days you won't. But the work you do in private, reading when no one's watching, journaling when you'd rather scroll, choosing faith over fear, it shows up in the public moments when it matters. There's a quote I love. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Your mindset is one of those systems. It's what you fall to when life gets heavy, and life will get heavy. It will test your faith, your confidence, your identity. That's why you don't just work on mindset when things are bad, you work on it every day so you're ready when the storm comes. The truth is, every next level of your life will demand a next level of your mindset. That means letting go of the belief that you have to be perfect. That means failing forward. That means asking for help when you'd rather fake it. No one is born with an unshakable mindset. It's not a gift. It's a commitment. And that commitment isn't made once, it's made daily. So as you leave here today, ask yourself this: what story am I telling myself about who I am and who I can become? Because that story is shaping your life, whether you realize it or not. You have the power to rewrite it. In the first sentence of that new story, it starts with this belief: I can learn. Not I already know, not I have to be perfect, just I can learn. That is where transformation begins. And it begins every single day. We are hardwired to connect. It's not just a preference, it's a need. It's in our biology, in our psychology, in our history. From the beginning of time, we've survived not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were together. We gathered around fires, told stories, looked after each other's children. We belonged to tribes, not just for comfort, but for survival. And yet, somehow, in the age of technology and connection, we've never felt more disconnected. You can scroll through 5,000 followers, like dozens of posts, drop emojis on someone's vacation photo, and still go to bed feeling completely alone. There's a difference between visibility and intimacy, between communication and connection. Just because you're in touch doesn't mean you're close. Just because someone reacts to your story doesn't mean they know your story. Strong relationships don't just happen, they're built quietly, patiently, intentionally. They're not made in the grand gestures or public declarations, but in the consistency of presence. They're built in returned phone calls, in showing up when it's hard, in remembering the small things when there's no audience watching. As I once had a mentor who told me, the most successful people I know, they're not just brilliant, they're reliable, they remember birthdays. They check in when you're sick. They make time even when they have none. At first I thought he was talking about professional networking, but what he meant was far deeper. He meant real relationships, the kind that hold you up when everything else falls apart. Think about it, when your life hits a crisis, when you get the diagnosis, when the business fails, when the loss punches the air from your lungs, what do you reach for? Not your resume, not your car, not your title. You reach for people. You reach for a voice that says, I'm here. And in that moment, you realize relationships are the true wealth, the only real safety net we have. But too often we wait. We assume they'll always be there. We say we'll call later, visit next time, say the words when we're ready. And then life, with all its unpredictability, interrupts our plans. Suddenly, next time becomes never got the chance. You don't want your most honest words to be spoken at a funeral. You don't want to write love letters in your eulogies. Speak now while they're alive to hear it. I once asked a group of people, Think of one person in your life you've taken for granted. One person who's been steady, who's shown up for you. What would you say to them if today was the last time you could speak to them? The room went quiet, tears welled. People suddenly realized how much they had left unsaid, not because they didn't care, but because they assumed there was more time. Relationships don't survive on autopilot. They require deposits, small, consistent acts of care. A text that says, "I'm thinking of you." A 10-minute call where you listen without checking your email. A handwritten note when everything has become digital. These acts may seem small, but they accumulate. Like compound interest, the emotional returns grow over time. Think of the people in your life like emotional bank accounts. Every word, every action is either a deposit or a withdrawal. The problem is we often withdraw without realizing it. We cancel plans. We forget milestones. We say, let's catch up soon, and never do. And then when we need support, the account is empty. But when you've invested, when you've taken time, even when busy, to show you care, those relationships become unshakable. They become the people who sit with you in silence when words fail, who drive across town just to give you a hug, who remind you who you are when you forget. I remember a friend of mine who hit rock bottom, job gone, relationship ended, deeply depressed. He told me the one thing that saved him was a single friend who called every day for 30 days. Not with solutions, just with presence. You don't have to fix me, he said, just don't forget me. That's the power of relationships. Sometimes it's not about saying the right thing. Sometimes it's just about showing up. In a world obsessed with growth and hustle and scale, we forget that meaning lives in the personal. It's not about how many people know your name. It's about who would miss you if you disappeared. It's about whose table you'd be invited to when you have nothing left to offer but yourself. So ask yourself, who do I need to reconnect with? Who do I owe a phone call, a thank you, an apology, a long overdue I love you? What conversation have I been putting off because it's uncomfortable or inconvenient? What if today was the last chance? The truth is, relationships aren't built in the big moments. They're built in the unnoticed ones. A friend remembering your coffee order, a partner doing the dishes without being asked, a colleague covering for you when your child is sick. These are the quiet acts of love that hold the world together. And the more we give them, the richer our lives become. When life inevitably shakes you, and it won't be your accomplishments that catch you. It'll be the people, the ones you chose to invest in, the ones you stayed connected to, the ones you built with moment by moment, brick by brick. Because at the end of the day, when the applause fades and the lights go out, all that remains is love. And love is not something we find, it's something we build. Imagine trying to build a skyscraper on sand. You might get a few floors up, you might even decorate the lobby, but eventually, without a strong foundation, it cracks, it crumbles. And no matter how beautiful the structure was meant to be, it fails. That's what happens when we neglect our health. Everything else we build, our careers, our families, our dreams, rests on a body that has limits. And when those limits are ignored, they don't just whisper, they scream. We often hear the phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. It sounds simple, almost cliche, but it holds a deeper truth that too many of us overlook. You can't lead a team, love your partner, raise your children, or chase your ambition when you're running on fumes. Energy isn't just some mystical force you either have or you don't. It's something you cultivate, you protect, you prioritize. And it starts with the choices you make when no one is watching. You know, this isn't about having a six-pack or blending kale into a green sludge every morning. This is about showing up for your life with clarity, with presence, with power. This is about energy, not the kind that comes from coffee or adrenaline, but the kind that comes from being truly alive, grounded, and strong. Think about sleep, not as a luxury, not as something you'll catch up on later, but as the most fundamental act of self-respect. There's a reason some of the most high-performing individuals in the world fiercely protect their sleep, not because they're lazy, not because they're unmotivated, but because they understand that a tired brain is a foggy brain. And a foggy brain leads to foggy decisions. Decisions that affect the trajectory of your business, your family, your future. When you're sleep deprived, your emotions are harder to manage. Your patience wears thin, and your creativity, your magic is dulled. You can't think long term when you're just trying to survive the next hour. Movement matters too. Not just the kind that happens in a gym, but the simple act of using your body for what it was designed to do. Move. Walk for 20 minutes. Take the stairs. Stretch when you wake up. This isn't about perfection. It's about momentum. Because energy builds on itself. When you move, your blood flows, your mind sharpens, your stress eases, and slowly you remember what it feels like to feel good. Hydration. It's so basic we forget it, but your body is mostly water, and when you're dehydrated, your brain shrinks. Literally, your thoughts slow, your fatigue grows, and yet the solution sits right in front of us. Drink water. Not energy drinks, not soda, not 5 cups of coffee, water. It's one of the smallest, most radical things you can do to take back control of your health. And food, real food, not the kind that comes from a bag or a box, but the kind that grew in the ground or had a mother. Food isn't just fuel, it's information. It tells your body how to function. Eat junk, feel junk. Eat whole, feel whole. Your body is speaking to you every day. And we've gotten so used to feeling tired, bloated, anxious, or foggy that we've come to accept it as normal. But what if that isn't normal? What if that's your body begging you to listen? The truth is, we live in a world that rewards hustle, it applauds burnout, it romanticizes exhaustion. And in the process, we lose touch with the very engine that drives everything we do. We push harder, sleep less, eat worse, and wonder why we're not feeling fulfilled. Why we snap at our loved ones, why our vision feels blurry, literally and metaphorically. We tell ourselves we'll rest later, we'll eat better next week, we'll take care of ourselves when things slow down, but the truth is they rarely do. There is no later, there is only now. You don't need to overhaul your life in one dramatic act. You need consistency. Tiny, unsexy actions repeated over time. Drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. Get sunlight on your face. Walk around the block. Eat one more vegetable. Sleep 30 minutes earlier. These are not grand gestures, but over time, they rebuild your foundation brick by brick. And the stronger your foundation, the more you can hold. We are not machines. We are human beings. And human beings have needs. Basic, biological, non-negotiable needs. We need rest. We need movement. We need food that nourishes rather than numbs. We need care, not as a luxury, but as a responsibility. Because the people who depend on you deserve the best of you, not what's left of you, not what's left of you. So ask yourself, not just once, but every day, what would it look like to protect your energy like it matters? Because it does. What could you accomplish if your body and mind weren't constantly in survival mode? How much more patient, present, focused, and powerful could you be if your foundation wasn't cracking under the weight of neglect? Your health isn't separate from your goals. It is the engine behind them. Without it, all the success in the world becomes dust in your hands. But with it, true, vibrant, intentional health, you become unstoppable. Not because you're chasing more, but because you're finally grounded enough to receive it. We live in a world that worships productivity, where calendars are full, inboxes overflow, and busy has become a badge of honor. But there's a profound difference between being busy and being fulfilled. You can spend your whole life checking boxes, running from meeting to meeting, chasing the next goal, only to wake up one day and wonder why you feel so empty. Activity doesn't equal meaning. Motion doesn't equal direction. And without purpose, all that effort starts to feel like noise. Purpose is what transforms grind into growth. It gives pain a point and struggle a shape. It turns setbacks into stepping stones. When you have purpose, real, personal, deeply felt purpose, hard things don't just happen to you, they happen for you. You begin to understand that discomfort is part of the journey, not a detour from it. You stop asking, why is this so hard? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That shift changes everything. Not everyone discovers a grand cinematic why overnight. In fact, most don't. Purpose doesn't always arrive with a lightning bolt or a viral quote. Sometimes it shows up in whispers, in quiet curiosity. It starts with small but powerful questions. What lights me up? What drains me? Where do I feel most useful, most alive? What injustice makes me angry? What problem do I feel called to solve? There's a story about a janitor at NASA during the space race. When asked what his role was, he didn't say, I clean floors. He said, I'm helping put a man on the moon. That's the difference. He wasn't just pushing a broom. He was part of something bigger. It wasn't the job that gave him purpose. It was the meaning he chose to give it. Purpose doesn't always require changing your career or moving across the world. It often begins right where you are. You could be teaching a child to read, building a product that improves lives, mentoring someone who feels lost, or simply showing up each day with integrity and care. Purpose isn't about scale, it's about significance. It's not what you do, it's the why behind it. Every day we have the opportunity to reconnect with that why, to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Who does this serve? What impact will it have, even in the smallest way? That practice done daily realigns us. It pulls us out of the chaos and grounds us in meaning. It becomes our compass. And when purpose becomes your compass, even the storms feel directional. Because life will throw storms. There will be failures, heartbreak, exhaustion, and doubt. But when you're anchored in purpose, you don't drift. You hold your course. You understand that this moment, this frustration, this fear, this fatigue has context. It's part of something. You're not just reacting to life. You're responding with intention. That's the power of purpose. It doesn't eliminate the hard days, but it gives them meaning. And meaning is what sustains us when motivation fades. It's what carries us through the late nights, the long fights, and the quiet moments when no one's watching. So no matter where you are, at the top in transition or still searching, lean into the questions not to find the perfect answer, but to keep moving in the direction that feels most true, because purpose isn't a destination. It's the direction we choose to walk every single day. There's a moment in every pursuit, every dream, every goal, when the spark fades. That early excitement, that rush of possibility, the fire that pushed you to start, it dies down. It always does. And in that quiet space where enthusiasm used to live, something else is required. Not inspiration, not motivation, discipline. Discipline is the thing that stays when nothing else does. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't ask for applause. It doesn't need a pep talk. It shows up every day without asking for permission. And it does the work regardless of how you feel. That's where the difference is made. Not in the moments when it's easy, when you're pumped up, or when the path is clear, but in the moments when it's hard, dull, or uncertain. That's when discipline quietly separates the ones who talk from the ones who do. People often mistake discipline for punishment. But discipline isn't about deprivation, it's about alignment. It's choosing long-term purpose over short-term comfort. It's deciding again and again that the life you want is worth more than the temptations pulling you away from it. And here's the truth most people miss. Freedom doesn't come from doing whatever you want. Freedom comes from doing what you said you would do, especially when it's hard. Discipline isn't a cage, it's a key. We all want freedom, freedom to create, to lead, to build, to become. But that freedom is earned, not found. And it's earned through the repeated, deliberate, often boring actions that shape our character, our craft, and our future. You want to write a book? Then you write. Not when you feel like it, not when inspiration strikes, but every morning, even when the words are clumsy, even when the page feels heavier than the day before, especially then, because that's how books are written, not through bursts of brilliance, but through daily commitment. You want to build a business? Then you do the hard things. You pick up the phone, you make the uncomfortable call, you face the rejection. You keep showing up when others would quit. And you do it not because it's fun, but because you said you would. That's discipline. And over time, it becomes something greater. It becomes trust, not with others, but with yourself. When you keep promises to yourself, you begin to build a reputation, a personal reputation. And that might be the most important one you'll ever have. Because when you know you'll follow through, when you've proven to yourself that you can be counted on, that changes how you walk into a room. It changes how you face uncertainty. It changes how you handle fear. Because you've seen yourself do hard things before. You've shown up tired. You've pushed through failure. You've acted when no one was watching. And you know that no matter what comes, you won't back down. The world doesn't need more talented people. It needs more consistent people. Talent will get you started. Discipline will get you finished. Every unachieved goal in your life didn't slip away because you weren't good enough. It slipped away because you didn't show up enough, not consistently, not with the kind of discipline that says, I will do this, especially when I don't want to. And the truth is, no one is born disciplined. It's not a personality trait. It's a practice. It's built through 1,000 small choices made with intention. Waking up when it's easier to sleep in, saying no when it's easier to say yes, starting when it would be easier to wait. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. That choice, repeated, builds a kind of quiet, powerful momentum, one that doesn't rely on mood or motivation, one that doesn't get derailed by inconvenience, one that becomes unstoppable. There will always be distractions. There will always be an easier option. There will always be something pulling your attention, your energy, your commitment away. Discipline is what brings it back. It's the anchor in the storm. It doesn't avoid resistance. It leans into it. Because discipline understands that resistance is the path, that the obstacle is the work, that the hard thing is the thing. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Discipline will ask you to stretch, to sacrifice, to keep going long after the thrill is gone. But it also gives you something priceless in return, self-respect. And from that self-respect, a deeper kind of power is born. Not power over others, but power within yourself. The power to act in alignment with your values, the power to move toward your vision, the power to live your life on purpose. In the end, discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's about saying, no matter how I feel today, I will act in service of who I want to become. And when you live that way, when you let discipline shape your days, you gain a freedom that most never touch. A freedom that isn't given, it's earned through effort, through grit, through showing up again and again, even when no one's clapping, especially then. So what do you work on every single day? Not just the emails, not just the meetings, not just the deadlines that keep stacking up and the errands that seem to multiply the moment you catch your breath, but the real things, the deep things, the things that actually matter. Because in the end, it won't be the checked boxes that define your life. It'll be who you became while checking them. It'll be the person behind the progress, not the list of accomplishments. Most people wake up and immediately reach for the to-do list. It feels productive. It feels like control. But if you never pause to ask why you're doing any of it, if you never take the time to invest in what really fuels your life, you'll run fast and end up nowhere. Success without depth is just noise. Achievement without alignment is empty. And burnout, that's why you have to ask yourself, what am I building in me as I build what's around me? Are you working on your mindset? Because the way you think is the lens through which you experience the world. If that lens is cracked by fear or fogged by self-doubt, you could have every opportunity in front of you and still feel stuck. Mindset doesn't mean pretending everything's okay. It means training your mind to see clearly, to challenge your own assumptions, to replace "I can't" with "I'll learn," to meet failure not as a signal to stop, but as a nudge to grow. Because when your mind is aligned, your choices follow. And those choices, over time, shape your life. Are you working on your relationships? Not networking, not collecting contacts, but real human connection. Are you reaching out to people when you don't need anything? Are you checking in, showing up, apologizing when necessary, forgiving when it's hard, and loving people even when they're difficult? Because no one does life alone. And the strength of your relationships often becomes the strength you draw from when life gets heavy. People don't remember your resume. They remember how you made them feel. Don't wait for a crisis to realize you needed connection all along. Are you working on your health? Not in the pursuit of perfection, but in the pursuit of energy, of longevity, of presence? Are you sleeping enough to think clearly, moving enough to release stress, eating to fuel, not just to soothe, drinking water before you're dehydrated and resting before you're broken? Your health is not a side project, it's the foundation. Because when your body breaks down, everything else pauses. And when your body thrives, so does your ability to serve, lead, and create. Are you working on your purpose? It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be famous, but it has to be real. Are you chasing goals that matter to you or ones you think you're supposed to chase? Are you aligning your work with your values? Are you finding meaning in the small moments, not just the milestones? Because when you know your why, the how gets lighter. Purpose turns pain into fuel. It gives effort meaning, and in the storms, it keeps you anchored. And are you working on your discipline? Not in the name of hustle, but in the name of self-respect. Are you keeping your promises to yourself? Showing up when you don't feel like it, doing the work no one sees? That's where real transformation lives. Not in the big wins, but in the small, boring, consistent actions that compound over time. Discipline is how your potential becomes reality, not because you felt inspired, but because you kept going, even when you didn't. In these 5 areas, they aren't tasks to master, they're practices to live. You won't perfect them, you're not supposed to, but you are supposed to begin, to return to them again and again, to build them not in emergency, but in intention, not when life falls apart, but so that you're strong when it does. This isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about choosing the right things to put on it in the first place. It's about shifting your focus from the urgent to the important, from the noise to the signal. Because no one drifts toward growth, no one stumbles into fulfillment. You get there by design, by attention, by showing up for the things that outlast trends, deadlines, and applause. And no, you don't need to do all of it today. You don't need to wake up tomorrow with every piece of your life perfectly aligned. But you do need to begin. You need to care enough about your own life to stop waiting. You need to decide that showing up for yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. That investing in your mind, your body, your heart, your mission, and your habits is not optional. It's the work. But success isn't built in a single breakthrough. It's built in the quiet commitment to the things that matter, done daily without fanfare. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most every day.